Hello children, I am Shubhajit and today with me is Hemalata. Welcome back. In the previous session, we learnt about suspensions. And colloids. Here in this session, we are going to gather some information about the separation method used to separate the individual components from the mixture. Learning outcomes. At the end of this session, you will be able to understand about evaporation, solvent extraction, centrifugation, sublimation, paper chromatography, distillation, fractional distillation. Keywords: evaporation, liquid to vapor, solvent extraction, separate fluid of different densities, centrifugation, separate mixtures of different densities, sublimation, solid to vapor directly, paper chromatography, separating mixture into individual components, distillation, liquid to vapor then back to liquid by heating or cooling, fractional distillation, separation of a liquid mixture into fractions differing in boiling point. Before starting the session, let's look at this concept map. Heterogeneous mixtures can be separated into the respective constituents by simple physical methods like hand-picking, sieving, filtration, etc. as we use in our day-to-day life. Sometimes special techniques have to be used for the separation of the components of the mixture. The choice of a particular method to separate components of a mixture will depend on the properties of the components of the mixture as well as their physical states. Let us see some of the separation methods here. The phenomenon of change of a liquid into vapors at any temperature below its boiling point is called evaporation. Example: take a beaker and fill half of its volume with water. Keep a watch glass on the mouth of the beaker. Put a few drops of ink on the watch glass. Now start heating the beaker. We do not want to heat the ink directly. You will see that evaporation is taking place from the watch glass. Continue heating till you do not observe any further change on the watch glass. We find that the water is evaporated from the watch glass and there is a residue on the watch glass. We know that ink is a mixture of a dye in water. Thus, we separate the components in the ink using evaporation. Two immiscible liquids can be separated by solvent extraction method using a separating funnel. The principle is that immiscible liquids separate out in layers depending on their densities. Example: take a separating funnel and pour the mixture of kerosene and water in it. Let it stand undisturbed for some time so that separate layers of kerosene and water are formed. Open the stopcock of the separating funnel and pour out the lower layer water carefully. Close the stopcock of the separating funnel as the kerosene reaches the stopcock. Centrifugation is a process by which fine insoluble solids from a solid liquid mixture can be separated in a machine called a centrifuge. A centrifuge rotates at a very high speed on being rotated by centrifugal force. The principle is that the denser, heavy particles are forced to the bottom and the lighter particles stay at the top when spun rapidly. In milk dairies, centrifugation is used to separate cream from milk. Certain solid substances, when heated, change directly from solid to gaseous state without attaining liquid state. The vapors, when cooled, give back the solid substance. This process is known as sublimation. Example: take the mixture of common salt and ammonium chloride in a china dish. Take a glass funnel which is big enough to cover the dish. Plug the mouth of the funnel with cotton and invert it over the dish. Keep the dish on the stand of the stove and heat for some time and observe the walls of the funnel. Initially, you find vapors of ammonium chloride and then solidified ammonium chloride on the walls of the funnel. Chromatography is a technique used for the separation of different components of a mixture based on their solubilities in the same solvent. It is used to determine the composition of mixtures. Example, take a thin strip of filter paper and draw a thick line just above the bottom of the filter paper using the marker. Pour some water into the beaker and hang the paper strip with the help of a pencil and sellotape in such a way that it should just touch the surface of the water. Make sure that the ink line or mark does not touch the water. Allow the water to move up the paper for 5 minutes and then remove the strip from the water and let it dry. The ink that we use has water as a solvent and the dye is soluble in it. As the water rises on the filter paper, it takes along with it the dye particles. Usually, a dye is a mixture of 2 or more colors. The colored component that is more soluble in water rises faster, and in this way, the colors get separated. Distillation is used in the separation of components of a mixture containing 2 miscible mixed liquids. But there should be a large difference in the boiling points of the 2 liquids. Example, let us try to separate acetone and water from their mixture. Take the mixture in a distillation flask. Fit it with a thermometer and clamp it to stand. Attach the condenser to the flask and on the other side of the condenser, keep a beaker to collect distillate. Heat the mixture slowly, keeping a close watch on the thermometer. The acetone vaporizes, condenses in the condenser and can be collected from the condenser outlet. Water is left behind in the distillation flask. To separate 2 or more miscible liquids for which the difference in their boiling points is less than 25 degrees Celsius, a fractional distillation process is used. The apparatus is similar to that for simple distillation. Fractionating column is fitted in between the distillation flask and the condenser. A simple fractionating column is a tube packed with glass beads. The beads provide the maximum possible surface area for the vapors to cool and condense repeatedly. Air is a homogeneous mixture and can be separated into its components by fractional distillation. Example, if we want oxygen gas from air, we have to separate out all the other gases present in the air. The air is compressed by increasing the pressure and is then cooled by decreasing the temperature to get liquid air. This liquid air is allowed to warm up slowly in a fractional distillation column, where gases get separated at different heights depending upon their boiling points.